Hi folks, it is more than time for the weekly overview. I normally do my weekly overviews on Sunday or Monday. It is Tuesday, the 17th of September, and I'm doing the weekly overview partly, not entirely, but partly because my last video, which was about the full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces, is still active. I mean, the eclipse and the full moon occurs in about 2 hours time. So a lot of all of the content that I covered in that video is still applicable. So it felt slightly weird doing the full week forecast a little bit, but also, as I had mentioned, things became really busy as I headed into yesterday and this morning, and sort of the unwieldiness of full moony energies was also very much operating and active. As we look ahead to this week, there are a few more points I want to make about this full moon lunar eclipse that add to what I talked about in the last full moon lunar eclipse video. So this is a weekly overview that takes us from, let's say, September 17th to about September 24th, 25th. I'm going to actually look ahead a week because of some of the aspects that the transiting planets are going to be making early next week. Because if I wait till Saturday or Sunday, it's too late to talk about aspects that will be occurring on Monday or Tuesday of next week. So let's just say between the 17th of September to about the 24th, 25th of September, there's a monthly overview for September already in my past videos. There's the new moon in Virgo video, which covers sort of the month created by the new moon of Virgo from September 2nd to October 2nd. There's the video regarding the eclipse. You can take a look at those videos for that kind of content. And I'm really saying that not because I'm trying to push views on videos, but I'm really saying that because I just want to make this a clean and clear space just to look at this coming week with any additional thoughts I have about the lunar eclipse occurring in a couple of hours. Okay, so there's other content there depending on what you're looking for. And in order to not repeat too much, just saying that that's some of the content that's already out there if you want those kinds of overviews. The full moon occurs in 2 hours time. It is 5:34 p.m. Pacific time right now, and I think the full moon lunar eclipse occurs at 7:34 p.m. Pacific time. And after the full moon occurs, those of you who've been watching my videos know I always say that the week after a full moon, energetically in many ways, is the best week out of the 4 weeks created by the lunar month to get things done. The moon is still full, it has crested, it is less unwieldy. Things could have been really busy, for example, like they were for me. But you know, the busyness comes with these kind of, it was really busy yesterday all day. I couldn't really stop taking care of things until I had to go to bed. And then this morning I woke up and there were a few things that need to be taken care of. And then there was activity. And then by around 11:30, I made the mistake of kind of sitting in my bed taking and ended up taking a nap. So it has this kind of, that's what I mean by this kind of unwieldy energy. It's productive and we're getting things done, but it's not, there's still sort of a lot of energy kind of ricocheting that you kind of have to accommodate into your productivity. Whereas after the moon is full for about a week, it's a little bit more like being productive, but you get to glide on the water like a swan or a duck. You're paddling away, but there's a balance and there's an elegance to it. So the opportunity is there this week that if you want to cross things off your to-do list and make a certain amount of progress, some of the energy may very well work in your favor. I want to emphasize as I talk about this week the trines that both the sun and then early next week Mercury will be creating with Pluto and Uranus, both intensely transformational planets. And this week, a lot of the aspects, all the aspects practically, that were encoded into the full moon lunar eclipse in a couple of hours are going to become exact. The only aspect that has already occurred prior to the full moon lunar eclipse is the sun squaring Jupiter in the middle of last week and the moon on its way to being full already having squared Jupiter but before the full moon. All the other aspects encoded into this full moon lunar eclipse. Mercury opposing Saturn, the Sun trining Pluto and Uranus. Though they're all going to become exact after the full moon lunar eclipse as this week progresses. So again, information on those aspects and what they mean, I'll cover some of that, of course, here through a certain lens, but there's more information on all of that in the full moon lunar eclipse video as well. And I'm, again, only saying that so I don't keep repeating information, but some of the information will have to be repetitive. There is a lens through which I want to look at it, and I'm not forcing a lens on it. You'll see. If you want to dive into what are these opportunities he's talking about and how they encoded in the full moon lunar eclipse, take a look at the full moon lunar eclipse video. Let's keep on going with this particular week. And with the full moon lunar eclipse video that I did, I gave it the title of having the light, the lunar light and the solar light on Neptune. The full moon lunar eclipse is conjunct Neptune, and the conjunction will become exact after the full moon lunar eclipse. It's an approaching conjunction. It's powerful. And I titled that video on the full moon lunar eclipse as a light on toxicity and vagueness, which are often two qualities that would be associated with the planet Neptune, especially among others, inspiration, etc. But again, as far as that conjunction, etc. is concerned, and the full moon is concerned, you can refer to that video for greater emphasis. But what the full moon lunar eclipse was also encoding was this trine of opportunity that is being created by the Sun this week and Mercury early next week. And I want to, because those are the primary aspects that are moving towards exactitude and can't be ignored, I want to draw your attention as we start to talk about this week and as we emphasize productivity and as we talk about the full moon lunar eclipse now being behind us, although we are heading to the solar eclipse in Libra and we're still very much in that eclipse portal. I want to draw your attention to the opportunity aspects that are in the process of becoming exact over the next 7 or 8 days. Before I get to that, there are two things we need to do. I want to tell you about a few more points related to the full moon lunar eclipse that I think apply, and I think it would behoove us to reflect on them. And I think it's also time, before I go into the whole opportunity thing, I want to list the aspects that are being made this week. When I talk about the idea, the full moon lunar eclipse is, of course, today, September 17th. And as I've mentioned to you, the week before and after July the 17th of this year, 2 months ago, as we headed to that second Capricorn full moon, could also have carried strong messages. Indeed, for some people, the eclipses may have been felt in those 2 weeks. And by the eclipses, I really mean that kind of ground-shaking, eclipsy energy, things occurring that feel important and momentous and feel like greater clarity, closure, in the house occupied by the sign of Pisces. Now, these themes continue because the Pisces-Virgo eclipses, this is only the first of eclipses. 3 of the 4 eclipses in 2025 will be on the Pisces-Virgo axis. 2 of the 4 eclipses in 2026, I think, will be in the Pisces-Virgo axis, and we'll have a final eclipse in Virgo, I'm pretty sure, in February of 2027. So this is the first of a set of eclipses that takes us all the way to February 2027. And as you know, we've had Neptune in the Pisces part of the chart since 2012, creating a certain amount of chaos, so providing a certain amount of inspiration, spiritual, creative inspiration, what I've been referring to as the crisis in Pisces speaking in 2014, 15, 16, 17, creating a sense of loss, maybe a sense of deception, gaslighting, inspiration, and Saturn's presence and transit through Neptune since March 2023, asking us to stabilize this part of the chart, revealing to us what is actually going on, and making us learn about our own role, cause and effect that has gotten us to this point. But that doesn't mean that if other people have been behaving in less than savory ways, that all of that falls on us. However, there is an element of reflecting on cause and effect as well. Some of the people that I've talked to have talked about feeling like some of what is playing out in the Pisces part of the chart has a karmic element to it, something carried over from a previous life. I'm not going to dismiss that. I get that given the energies at play. But an important and constructive shift has been occurring in the Pisces part of the chart and continues now to intensify. Not only does Saturn continue his transit in the Pisces part of the chart through much of 2025 into January, February 2026, the North Node eclipses also come into Pisces starting the September 17th full moon lunar eclipse in a couple of hours. And it could be that we are being asked to handle two separate energies in the house occupied by Pisces in the chart. One, the Saturn stabilization, the understanding of responsibility, and Saturn asking us to create a really strong foundation in the Pisces part of the chart and stabilize some of the chaos that has been caused by Neptune's transit, or asking you very firmly and clearly to structure any creative or spiritual plans or desires or directions that Neptune has been laying out for you since 2012 in the house occupied by Pisces. That could be one set of energies. And the North Node eclipses coming into Pisces could be a separate set of activities and goals, and leaning into the Pisces part of the chart to experience your next set of growth and adventure and forward movement, and to acquire and build a new set of strengths, learnings that allow your soul to develop in this kind of 3D reality. It could all be related to the same smorgasbord, or because houses encompass different things, it could be that the stabilization is one thing, and then the North Node eclipses are bringing a focus on something a little bit different. I think it's, it may well be for some, it's gonna vary, but it is the same part of the chart. I think having the North Node eclipses move into the Pisces part of the chart and having Saturn in the Pisces part of the chart is to be welcomed and celebrated. And it isn't always that I would say that Saturn's transit through a certain part of the chart should be celebrated. But it's sorely needed. And the attention is needed. A certain amount of clarity on what is what the potential is, what it isn't, what is or is not going on, what are the lessons that need to be processed. As I said, many of us may have felt the eclipse, the actual feeling of, if you were to think of the tarot, the tower coming down, the week before and after July the 17th. And this is the first point I want to make regarding the full moon lunar eclipse that I feel I may not have covered completely in the full moon lunar eclipse video. As we process and as we've come to today, those of us who experience the intensity in those weeks, you may get to a point where there's an assimilation, an integration, a processing of whatever it is that occurred during those weeks. Some people are going to feel the intensity the week before and after September 17th, some people the week before and after July the 17th. But the idea of there being a light on Neptune in Pisces and the chaos in Pisces and the crisis in Pisces and this full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces, for some people, having a light on something can sometimes mean that it brings eclipsy things to the forefront. Fated change, doors opening, doors closing, ground shaking change, issues related to mortality. And it could be that having a light on Neptunian vagueness or toxicity brings certain things to the forefront. For other people, the events that may have occurred as you headed to that second Capricorn full moon on July the 21st may mean that having a light on something is a quieter thing. Because there's the emotional and intuitive processing that occurs with the full moon, and there's the solar processing that occurs with the sun getting ready to oppose Neptune. With this full moon lunar eclipse, you've got the sun in Virgo, you've got the moon in Pisces, right next to Neptune in Pisces. So not only do you have a full moon, in a few days you're going to have a full Neptune when the sun moving forward is going to oppose Neptune. So you have both this solar light, and I'm going to be talking about that a certain amount in this video as we continue. And we have this full lunar light. The lunar light may well bring emphasis on things you don't quite know as fact, things that are felt intuitively. There's always with the full moon a sense of alarm. There's always that kind of wolf howling, the hair raising on the back of your neck kind of as I've said, the emotional pot comes to a boil of milk, comes to a boil. The intuitive part of us comes to a boil. But it's not always a tantrum. Sometimes it is a kind of a taking stock. And with this set of eclipses on the Virgo-Pisces axis that are so heavily lunar eclipses, there's an element of processing things and completing and releasing them. So some of us may come into the early part of this week processing things in such a way that we have some sort of an emphasis on releasing, completing part of whatever the crisis in Pisces is, especially if we're dealing with a certain amount of toxicity. These eclipses and Saturn's presence, especially when we're talking about relationships that are fundamentally codependent or situations that have an elements of codependence to them, may mean that we get to a point with these where we can really process. It's so hard. It's so easy for someone from the outside when you are in some sort of that kind of an issue to be able to say what needs to be done and what is real and what is not real. Giving advice is such an easy thing. Going through these kinds of situations is so much more challenging. And there's so much to process. So much of it is tied to our own growth. So much is tied to knowing and understanding where our source really is. And that source doesn't really sit with another person. It's your source is with a different force altogether. And the question becomes if we are shining a light on toxicity or vagueness or a lack of complete clarity or transparency from others, or that we may have been producing, we're kind of paying more and more attention with Saturn going through Pisces and these eclipses around processing that, learning from that, understanding what the consequences are, understanding what we're going to release and what we're going to keep. But this emphasis on processing and releasing might be quite powerful, especially if there was something in the week before and after July the 17th that culminated there, that since then that you've been, and you might be coming into this full moon lunar eclipse going, there's a kind of a flotsam and jetsam, it's like a little bit like when you're dealing with a shipwreck and you've survived it and you're in your lifeboat, but what are these pieces of wood? And the wreckage is on the water, but you're not directly interacting with it or impacted by the shipwreck anymore, but you are assimilating it into your experience. You're processing, you're observing it. The other thing when you're dealing with Neptunian energies and you're dealing with energies of people who are not completely truthful or transparent or clear, or if you are one of those people who's been playing your cards very close to your chest, is that with Neptune, part of the challenge becomes that some of what is going on is true, but not all of it. And so when your mind or your soul or your intuition or your lunar energy or your solar energy, but especially your lunar energy, taps into something that isn't completely clear, that is going on behind your back, then a lot of the damage comes from the understandable fact that matters related to either that individual or that subject or topic, everything gets tainted with doubt. Everything moves into a place of suspicion and paranoia and rose-colored and Neptunian haziness. And part of what Saturn and these North Node eclipses might be able to do through that process is separate the wheat from the chaff. This is what is real. This is what may not be real. And this is what actually may have happened. And that kind of clarity, especially on an intuitive level or a general level, is going to be helpful, understandably. But it's also understandable that, it's one of those situations that if you've dealt with someone who hasn't told you the truth, or you're dealing with someone Neptunian, even if they are fundamentally, if you're dealing with someone who's an addict, for example, very Neptunian, or addicted to, you can be addicted to so many things. You can not quite have a grip on reality in various aspects of our lives. And if it's you who's dealing with this, or if you're dealing with someone where they don't quite have a grip on reality in some aspect of their lives, and they're being Neptunian, not quite managing and controlling it in a Saturnian way, in a responsible way, then try and understand and process that it becomes very hard to be able to not doubt other things related to this individual or this topic or the way that things are playing out. And everything takes on this kind of smoke and mirrors feeling, which is not helpful. It's destructive. And it's not true. So some of Saturn's energy and presence through Pisces since March 2023, and some of these eclipses with regard to what can be processed, what can be completed, what can be released, might bring some clarity as we are shining a light on toxicity and vagueness. For some people, it might bring certain things to the forefront that need to be addressed. For some people, there may be an awareness that there's still a certain amount of vagueness going on, but if it's vague and people are being unclear, people are doing things behind your back, and if you don't really have much control over it, or they're not giving you any control or not taking your say on things, you can determine what your philosophy around that is going to be. Not much out of that is going to come out in a totally happy way for anybody. It's not the wisest way to deal with things. And one of the consequences of that is that if you are thinking that you'll exercise control over others in a way by playing cards close to your chest, or others are feeling, or you're feeling like others are handling matters in a way that isn't completely truthful, really where things are going on a certain level is that those relationships will likely not have a future. And that can be a Neptunian way of dissolving those situations that are not in your highest good or your highest interest. And somewhere having this light on this kind of, what I wanted to emphasize is that some of the light that this eclipse may be shining may very well have to do with processing what needs to be completed, what needs to be released, what is on its way out, what stability looks like, and also processing how much, what really may be true, and where we may have gotten swept up in a Neptunian haze. Fact versus fiction. And that very much will be part of this processing. There's one more thing I want to emphasize which isn't directly related to this week. But remember that the current Mercury cycle that we're in is a Mercury cycle in Leo. The house occupied by Leo in your chart has an emphasis on communications and transactions all the way towards December the 5th. And we're in a particularly yang phase related to that, where actions may be taken through communication, through transactions, all the way to September 29th to October the 1st, 2nd, when Mercury and the Sun are going to conjunct in Libra. So don't lose sight of the Mercury cycle in Leo. If you know and understand the part of your chart occupied by the sign of Leo, and you know that there may be certain communications, transactions, Mercury-related or ruled activities that you want to roll out, then over the next 10, 12, 13 days might be a good time to bring some of your attention back to that. Some of this is going to happen naturally. And then after, let's just say October 1st, 2nd, when the Sun and Mercury will conjunct, all the way to Mercury going retrograde, November the 26th, is another month and a half of taking stock of the communications that have occurred and building on them and refining them. And you're laying a certain foundation at present related to communications and transactions connected to the Leo part of your chart, the house occupied by the sign of Leo in your chart. This is the best I can do in a general reading. I'm not looking at your individual chart. I can't interpret it for that house. But just, for example, if you're a Virgo rising, there may be an element of closing out of your last year that is kind of extended and still occurring. There might be things that you're kind of wrapping up while embracing the new. There might be a sense of, I'm dotting these I's, I'm crossing these T's, I'm still involved in closing out some part of my new year, my last year. And by last year, I mean whenever the Sun enters the first house is when your new year starts. The Sun enters the first house and starts a 12-month cycle around your chart. And for me, that happens when the Sun enters the sign in your first house. I use whole signs. So if you are a Virgo rising, then the Sun starts your new year around July 22nd, 23rd. However you want to think of that or experiment with that, if you feel the first house starts where the ascendant degree is, you can play with that and see what that looks like and what that feels like for you. But for other people, if you're a Leo rising, for example, your new year might just be getting going. Your new year may have started around July 22nd, 23rd and went right into Mercury retrograde. So it may have felt like, what the hell happened? The new year didn't quite get going. And since the new moon in Virgo is when there's great, and you might feel like, okay, I'm finally starting to, from a communication, cognition, transacting perspective, starting to roll out certain things related to my new year starting. If you're a Scorpio rising, I'm just giving a few examples, it may be that there's a certain amount of communication related to career that is Mercury cycles are a certain amount of very solid foundation building activity occurs with these Mercury cycles. So it's just my way of saying it's not going to come up again in these weekly or in any of these videos that I'm doing until we get to the Sun and Mercury conjuncting at the end of September, beginning of October. So I'm just giving you a reminder over the next couple of weeks. If you feel, I'm just putting a conscious light back onto the Mercury cycle in Leo. Okay, let's talk about the aspects that are actually occurring this week. They are, and you'll be familiar with these because these are aspects that we talked about in the full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces video. And again, if you want more of a slant or more details on this, you can always look in that. But just as today, of course, is the full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. Tomorrow, Mercury opposes Saturn, and that opposition becomes direct. On the 19th, the Sun trines Uranus. On the 20th, the Sun opposes Neptune. On the 21st, the Sun trines Pluto and Mercury squares Jupiter. Mercury in Virgo, Jupiter in Gemini. On the 22nd, two sign shifts occur. The Sun enters Libra and Venus enters Scorpio. And this is a transit we've talked about it, but it's not in the full moon lunar eclipse video. On the 22nd, Venus, just before she enters Scorpio, and while she's still in Libra, in the last degree of Libra, will square Pluto in Capricorn. And then as we go into what is next week, technically, on the 24th, 25th, on Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, Mercury is in place to trine Uranus, oppose Neptune, and as the week progresses, trine Pluto, and get ready to move into Libra. So when I talk about the triangle of opportunity, and why I want to spend a certain amount of time on that, is because the Sun's trining Pluto and Uranus becomes exact as this week progresses, and by the time you get into next week, Mercury, the planet of communication, follows to make those trines as well. You've got the opportunity aspects that were encoded into the full moon lunar eclipse that continue to progress and develop and become exact. The Sun and Mercury, the Sun and Mercury in Virgo, trining Uranus and Taurus, trining Pluto and Capricorn, all the earth signs, so those three houses in your chart. And the Sun and Mercury getting ready to oppose Neptune. You've got also the stabilizing, the crisis in Pisces activities. These are the two sets of energies that we have been juggling for a while and will continue to juggle. The forward movement and the opportunity and the direction that we want to move in, signified by the Aries North Node eclipses, Jupiter's transit through Taurus between May 23 and May 24, Uranus's current transit in Taurus, and Jupiter's transit in Gemini. All have, this is what is growing and this is the direction you need to move in. And then you've got Saturn and Neptune and the North Node eclipses moving into Pisces, saying, while you are moving in these desired directions, don't forget to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart. And a lot of these, there are a number of aspects that were encoded in the full moon lunar eclipse that become exact. First one, coming to tomorrow, Mercury opposes Saturn. You may be in a place where if you have not communicated certain things, or you have not yet used Mercury to support planning, taking action, transacting, communicating in matters related to the house occupied by Virgo in your chart, to support Saturn stabilizing and building a strong foundation and teaching you important lessons that are for your benefit in the Pisces part of your chart. For some people, this might be direct and overt communication and transactions. For some of us, it may be thinking about and coming up with communication plans, project plans. This is what I should do. This is what I should do next. This is what I should. It could be financial ideas. It could be relationship building ideas. It could be opportunities. It could be, what can I do and generate as part of being in this month of Virgo? The last new moon was on September 2nd in the month of Virgo. The Sun is currently in Virgo. Venus went through Virgo in August. Mercury is in Virgo. Mercury is following Venus and the Sun right now. So Mercury is the planet through communications and transaction that gets to finalize activities related to the annual processional that Venus, the Sun, and Mercury and the new moons make in every part of the chart roughly at the same time every year. So you may go into tomorrow with at least ideas, plans, thoughts, right here. These are the different things that I should really get moving on. And by moving on these, you might actually help Saturn stabilize the Pisces part of the chart. Don't ignore those ideas. For some of you, they may be communicated. And if you're dealing with those kind of gaslighty issues, you may be thinking about what needs to be communicated, what needs to be transacted, or you might be in the flow of those. So that's tomorrow, Mercury opposing Saturn. But the energies have been building over this last week. It's rarely on the day that the aspect becomes exact. It's as the aspect is approaching. The Sun in Virgo trines Uranus in Taurus on the 19th, and on the 21st trines Pluto. There may be an actual opportunity that you are leaning into, or set of opportunities that you are leaning into that develop and move into the realm of communication, actual communication, starting next week, or as you head towards next week. This week it's the Sun. Mercury starts these trines on the 24th when Mercury trines Uranus. Some of these may be concrete and may show up with the Sun trining both Uranus and Pluto, are very powerful transformational planets. If there's one thing I wanted to convey in this weekly overview video, it is this, that I'm getting to 37 minutes into the video. Some of us may be dealing with and may be leaning into and may have already leaned into in the past 4 or 5 days potential opportunities. But when the Sun is concerned, it is an internal. I talked about where is your source? Where does the guidance come from? Who is your truest, best friend and companion through this existence and this 3D reality? It's unlikely that it's another person, really, consistently, as opposed to your connection to source and whatever that means to you. Some of you may translate it to the mercurial realm. Those of you who are not into a lot of spiritual woo-woo stuff may feel like, you know what? I take care of myself. I think about things. I'm conscious in my actions. I use my brain. I have common sense. Great. If that's what that feels like to you, that you have your hands on the driving wheel of your life and are making conscious decisions to enact things and take care of things and create your reality, then wonderful. For others of us, it may feel like we have a conscious awareness. We may attribute it to intuition, a connection to source, and understanding that we are playing with a different set of energies, and those energies respond to us and teach us and guide us. And with the Sun, there's something very clear about that solar energy. It is that connection to source. It is that solar light that is able to take in everything. It is a kind of an intelligence and a knowing that is so much quieter than the mind and is so much clearer. And when the Sun gets ready to trine Uranus and Pluto like this, you may be the one who is dusting yourself off and going, you know what? I'm creating the change and the transformation. I'm taking actions related to the Virgo part of the chart, or I am taking actions that will tap into the transformational energies. I am going to take actions that will help Pluto complete his transformation in the Capricorn part of the chart since 2008 by the middle of November. And I'm going to take actions. It's a commitment to the right kind of forward movement. It's a commitment to supporting the Plutonian transformation in the Capricorn part of the chart and the Uranian transformation in the Taurus part of the chart. What is the right path for you? What are your breadcrumbs? What are the right opportunities for you? As I said, some of us may be dealing with real opportunities showing up that feel like, oh, this could be a path forward. For some of us, this week, it is a resolve. And as this week continues and Mercury starts to follow the sun, and it may start to translate into planning, communicating, and action. So somewhere as this week progresses, a certain amount of energy and resolve and clarity. How do we work with Source? How do we respond to opportunities? How do we take action and then release our attachment to the outcome so we aren't energetically chasing after it, watching it? How do we maximize opportunity? What do I need to do in order to move forward? How wide do I want to cast my net? How much do I trust my connection to Source? What am I taking charge for? What is the direction I'm moving forward in? How am I supporting the transformation in the Capricorn part of the chart? How am I supporting the desired direction in the Taurus part of the chart? This may well be the week when either opportunities start to show up and you start to gain awareness of them, or you start to say, enough is enough. This birth canal that I've been referring to since September the 2nd, all the way to the end of the first week of June, completing the eclipse cycle, the North Node eclipses in the Aries part of our chart, the house occupied by Aries. This may be the week when you feel the connection to yourself and to Source and your internal power to go, all right, here we go. And with the opposition to Neptune, the Sun trines Uranus on the 19th. On the 20th, he opposes Neptune. On the 21st, he trines Pluto. With that opposition to Neptune becoming exact on the 20th, Friday. A lot that I've talked about earlier in this video around what is real, what is not real, what is the nature of the vagueness or the toxicity or the deception, what do I want to do with spiritual or creative or inspired plans related to Neptune's transit through the Pisces part of my chart. A full Neptune with the solar light on it. Awareness, followed as you head towards September the 25th, when Mercury opposes Neptune, by plans, communication related to that awareness. And this awareness is already in progress, and the communication may start later this week, or the planning may start later this week. It's not when the aspect is exact. It's as we head to it. And with the opposition to Neptune, so much of this video has actually talked about processing, releasing, what has really been going on. Where's the way vagueness and the toxicity been real? Where has it produced a Neptunian haze? But a lot that is happening this week, and has been happening over the past 4 or 5 days, is on a solar level. It has not yet completely translated into action. Now, if you're availing of opportunities, going to an interview, responding to emails, I'm certainly scheduling readings and doing myself thinking about, it's not as if it is not an active week. I told you I was crazy busy yesterday with all sorts of stuff. The moon is full, for Pete's sake. So the busyness and the activity is there, but some part of the aspects that we're talking about is still very connected to source and aware in a solar level, and soon will start to translate into action and activity. You get on the horse this week. You either get on the horse because there's an opportunity that comes up that you decide to ride your horse towards, or you get on the horse because you've had enough of not being on the horse. And getting on the horse is committing to a journey that takes you to the end of the first week of June next year. And very soon, starting later this week, let's just say starting the 19th, 20th of this month, plans, mercurial activities. Some of them are plans, some of them are actual communications and transactions. Begin. Now, curiously, whenever we have planets, as I've mentioned to you, squares and trines and oppositions that the personal planets make to the longer, slower planets are just part of our bread and butter on a week-by-week, month-by-month basis. Once the planets conjunct Pluto, Saturn, Neptune, the North Node, Chiron, Uranus, Jupiter, they're going to square, trine, oppose, trine, square for the rest of the year or so, or for the rest of the duration of their rotation around the chart until they get to make those conjunctions again. Squares to Pluto, however, really do need to be paid attention to. And the trines to Pluto can be enjoyed. And we've talking about the Sun and Mercury getting ready to trine Pluto. That's wonderful. But right around that time, as we head towards the 22nd, Venus squares Pluto. So we may already, that is an energy, Venus in Libra squaring Pluto in Capricorn. What action does Venus in Libra need to take? Is there an opportunity? Something brewing this week in terms of opportunity and awareness around this Venus in Libra squaring Pluto in Capricorn. I may have said Pluto in Aquarius. Venus in Libra squaring Pluto in Capricorn. The last degree of Capricorn, last degree of Libra. Venus creates opportunities wherever she goes. Creative opportunities, relationship opportunities, financial opportunities. Right now, because Venus is ahead of the Sun and Mercury, it's like she is plowing the ground and planting seeds and making us aware of what is shooting up and what we're going to cultivate. So there may be opportunities that we need to respond to, become aware of, create, cultivate, plant seeds on in the Libra part of the chart that will help Pluto finish the transformation of the Capricorn part of the chart that he's been making since 2008. And I have videos on this. Probably my most watched video was the recent 8.5-minute video that I did on Pluto coming back into Capricorn. So those resources are out there. I'll place a link to some of these videos at the end of this video once I'm done processing it. So just keep an eye out for that Venus square Pluto, because in about a month's time, we're going to get ready to have Mercury square Pluto and then the Sun square Pluto. And as we head towards Later in the year, we're going to get ready to have Mars opposing Pluto. That is going to be, that's when, that's when, that's when, that's when some of the transformational energies really get going. And I'm sort of being inspired to say, don't forget about Mars's transit through Cancer and Leo and back and direct. Separate video on that done too. But right now we're just talking about this week. So this week, just keep an eye out on, Pluto is back into Capricorn until November 19th. And we get to commit to finishing his transit. And a lot of this transit is supported by Jupiter's transit through Taurus from May 23 to May 24. Uranus currently in Taurus. Those energies and that these trines through Virgo, Capricorn, and just enjoy them and lean into them. Get on the horse. Whether it's a real opportunity you're moving towards or whether you just feel like I've had enough and I am moving forward and creating these changes. And it is time, the time for inaction is behind me, or slower action is behind me, and I'm going to accelerate the action. I've talked about forward movement being denoted by the North Node in Aries, North Node eclipses in Aries, Uranus in Taurus, and Jupiter in Gemini. Wherever Jupiter goes, he tries to connect you back to the last time he was transiting your ninth house, and wherever he is, the Gemini part of your chart, the house occupied by Gemini, he is ending a 12-13-year cycle, beginning a 12-13-year cycle connected to his last transit through your ninth house. And Mercury in Virgo squares Jupiter. So again, this theme of opportunities, action, communication in the Virgo part of the chart, helping move us forward while contributing to stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart. I mean, Mercury squares Jupiter this week and Mercury opposes Saturn. And in about a week's time, because Mercury is starting to gather speed, by the time we get to the 25th of September, Mercury is going to oppose Neptune. Some of the intuitive awareness created by this full moon lunar eclipse today, soon to be in 70 minutes, we're going to see communication, transactions, and plans about them as the next week progresses. And I've been talking to you about the idea that the sun creates these trines and these oppositions and Mercury follows. We're here. We're entering those 10 odd days when the sun trines Uranus, Pluto, opposes Neptune, and then Mercury follows 4 or 5 days later to do the same thing. Very productive, powerful time. We are in the eclipse portal. The full moon lunar eclipse today, and in 2 weeks, new moon solar eclipse, south node solar eclipse in Libra. Echoing back to October 14th of 2023 to March 24th, 25th of 2024. What needs to be released in the Libra part of the chart so you can move towards the Aries part of your chart? And when you're in this kind of portal with the eclipses, change is occurring, is afoot. And the personal planets are all direct right now. So it is pulling you forward. Mercury opposes Saturn on the 18th, 19th Sun trines Uranus, 20th Sun opposes Neptune, 21st Mercury squares Jupiter, Sun trines Pluto, 22nd the Sun enters Libra, Venus squares Pluto, and then Venus enters Scorpio. And on the 24th, 25th, 26th, Mercury gets ready to trine Uranus, oppose Neptune, trine Pluto. There you have it, folks. Either 2 sets of energies this week. Getting back on the horse to move in the direction that you want to move in, either because there are opportunities you're chasing or because you have just decided that over the next 9 months or so, you are going to create the change that you want to create for yourself, balanced by whatever these activities are. And they could be, a lot of this is related to the Virgo part of the chart, admittedly. Whatever these activities are a separate set of activities helping to stabilize and develop a cleaner, clearer, more balanced, more empowered relationship with the Pisces part of the chart, where you determine what you're going to release and how you're going to stabilize that part of the chart, the Pisces part of the chart. Some part, at least of the title of the full moon lunar eclipse video, focused on the toxicity and vagueness of Neptune. And this week, with some of the aspects that are becoming exact, the oppositions to Neptune are certainly there with the Sun and Mercury coming up over the next week, but the trines to Pluto and Uranus become exact too. That's a very powerful, harmonious flow of energy, encouraging you to focus on getting back on the horse and committing to accelerating and moving towards change, whether external opportunities have shown up or not. I'm willing to put money on the fact that for a lot of us, there's a sense of, here's what I need to do. Here's how I need to start making changes. Here's how I need to get back. Enough is enough. I am done not shining my light. I am done being hijacked by the vagueness and the craziness in the Pisces part of the chart, so I can really focus on the transformation that needs to be completed in the Capricorn part of the chart by November 19th, and in the Taurus part of the chart over the next couple of years as I head towards 2026, early 2026. Okay, if you are interested in me taking a look at your chart and doing a reading for you, there are a few options. There are a couple of different options that I now offer, thanks to some of the work that I've done with you as viewers and piloting and understanding how to offer both a 30-minute reading and my standard reading. Use the email address in the description box below and email me there, and I'll give you information on it. You can see if you want to move forward or not. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you have not already. Next to the subscribe button, there's a bell icon. Hover over that, click on the wiggly bell, and you'll be notified when I do new videos. There's a thanks button underneath this video. You can use that to contribute to this channel. Comment, like this video if you feel so inclined. It gives it greater circulation on YouTube. And if you found this information helpful or useful, feel free to tell others about it and you know, make the content available to whoever you think might benefit from it. Thank you so much for your support and for listening. Have a great week. Just the full moon lunar eclipse is going to be done in about an hour. Certainly by the time I post this, it will be behind us by an hour or two or whatever, because I'm going to be done with this. I'm going to go take care of other stuff before I upload this video. So by the time you see this, the full moon lunar eclipse will be behind you. Have a great, productive rest of this week, and resolve to take back control. And just be open to the fact that the eclipses are still underway. So you are going to resolve to start to move in a certain direction and get to a certain point or a place, or at least co-create with the universe and say, where you don't have to become so attached to the outcome that you're only driving to something that looks a certain way. Be open to what the outcome may look like, but whatever this desired direction is that you've been trying to explore since March, April of last year, 2023, you might feel like, you know what, time to get on the horse and start to move in that direction and see what the final solution will actually look like. How will those energies get incorporated into what I'm trying to do? And in tribute to the full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces in about an hour's time at this point in time, reflect on and understand that some part of you is also going to start communicating or start putting some plans around stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart once and for all. And the process might take another year, 2 years, year and a half to 2.5 years before you really feel like all of that is done. But with this particular eclipse and heading to it, you know more. Things are not quite as murky as they were. And where they are murky, you might get to a place where you make some decisions with regard to how you are going to deal with those energies and those people in a more empowered way. And if you feel like there are creative and spiritual plans related to the Pisces part of the chart that you need to concretize, structure, plan around, move towards, you might just be at a point finally where you're like, okay, time to make that happen. All right, I will leave it at this, and more to follow. Take care.